So I'm going to create a new project, and we're going to start with the basics of WebDriver today. And first we're going to see how to invoke all browsers. So I'll create a new class and give it a name as test day 2. Alright, so I'm gonna add all the jars of WebDriver. Go to build path, add external archives. So I'll add these jars first, and then I'll add more jars. Just 1 minute. Right. So last time I was saying that like instead of adding these jars, if you just add the Selenium jar, the previous that we used to add with Selenium RC, then also the entire project of WebDriver will gonna work. It means if I don't add these jars, if I don't add these many jars, and if I go to build path, remove it from the build path, and if I just add one single jar file, that is just this one, 2.44. If I just add this jar file as well, then also if I call the Firefox driver class, I'll say Firefox driver equal to new Firefox driver. If I just write this statement, and if I bounce over onto this, you can see I can get this import Firefox driver. If I click on this, if I save this, and let's say if I call one of the method driver.get, and I'll go to a URL http gmail.com. If I save this, if I run this, it will still do the same thing, right? It has gone to Gmail, and it has opened up Firefox and gone to gmail.com, navigated to gmail.com. Now let's say the same thing I need to do it on IE or on Chrome. So what I need to do, if you go to seleniumhq.org, and if you go to the download section, you remember we have downloaded for IE, we need to download Internet Explorer driver server, right? If based on your Windows configuration, if it is 32-bit or 64-bit, IE only works on Windows, so these settings need not to do on Mac or other operating systems. For Chrome, we have this 2.13, right? This is the latest Chrome binary that we need to download, and we have downloaded for Windows, and it only provides Windows 32-bit. It will still gonna work on the 64-bit as well machine, right? Now once you download, I have downloaded it and I have stored in a location that is C drive softwares, and this is my Chrome driver.exe file, and this is my IE driver server.exe file. So next thing, in order to support the IE browser and the Chrome browser, you need to do, you need to give the path of IE driver server.exe. Just copy this path, and you need to give this path in the computer properties, advanced system settings, and environment variables. So here you're gonna find the path variable. Just edit it. And at the very end, just make sure you need not change any things that is previously configured. If you make any changes to any previous thing, then it might hamper any existing running program. So just put a semicolon at the very end and give this path for Internet Explorer server exe, and then same you need to give for Chrome driver.exe. This is one way of giving it. Now just close it. Just click on OK and save all the changes that you have made, and then go back to your project. Now let's call the another class that is Internet Explorer Driver. This is the second class for IE browser. The first one we have seen Internet Explorer Driver. The second one we are going to see. The first one we have seen Firefox Driver. The second one we are going to see is the Internet Explorer Driver. So just when you run this, it will start your Internet Explorer browser, and then it will navigate to gmail.com, and everything will gonna work same way, right? So all the locators and everything will gonna work same way, because the locators are built on the HTML code itself, and HTML is same on all the browsers, right? Now let's say for Chrome, same thing you need to do it for Chrome as well. You will say Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. So sometimes what happens if the environment variables are not configured properly, you can even give those things over here inside a code. Code as in you can say system dot set property, and for Chrome you'll say WebDriver dot Chrome dot driver, and in the argument you need to give C drive softwares Chrome driver dot exe, like this. And in Java we give if we are giving the path with backslash, we need to give it with double backslash, like this. Now if I run this, it will launch Chrome browser, but on my machine I have actually my Chrome browser is broken somehow, so it will not gonna invoke the Chrome. But if you do the same thing on your machine, then it will gonna work. I actually need to uninstall it and reinstall it. So this is how the things will gonna work for Chrome. And if you want to do it for IE, you'll say webdriver.ie.driver, and here you need to give the path of IE driver server.exe, and same you'll call the Internet Explorer driver class back again. And when you run it, it will invoke the Internet Explorer browser, right? Now let's say what happens, I started working on Firefox first. I have designed my entire project using the Firefox driver class, right? And everything is working fine. Now I all of a sudden got a requirement that I need to execute my entire code on Internet Explorer browser. Let's say I have 10,000 lines of code written over here, which I have built up on the Firefox using the Firefox driver class. Now after driver.get, let's say I want to get the title of a current page. So the next method is driver.get title. So driver.get title will return the title of a current page. If you mouse over onto this, you can see that it is returning a string value over here, right? Let's go to the API first. I'm gonna show you one more thing. If you go to the download section, and if you go to the Java document, so let's take a look at this get title method. So I'll go to the WebDriver API, the WebDriver interface that we have seen. These are all the classes: Firefox driver, Chrome driver, HTML unit driver, Internet Explorer driver, Safari driver, right? What is HTML? What is remote web driver? We're gonna talk about it later on, right? So if I go downwards, you'll see the method get title. So it returns the title of the current page. And there are other methods as well, like get, the one that we have used, get. It loads a new page with a current browser, right? But if you take a mouse over on to these methods, you're not getting any definition of these methods. Every time you need to go to this API document on the Selenium website, and you actually need to see what this method is actually doing, right? Okay. Yes, Rahul, you have any question? No, Rahul, I cannot hear you. Let me see. Let me unmute you. Just give me a moment. Okay, Rahul. Yeah, tell me.
Hey, Raman,
Yeah.
the one that you just explained regarding that set property, actually you gave the uh, like entire path for the exe for the browser, and for IE and Firefox that was not needed, but still that browser, like the browser was opening. But for Chrome, actually you have used that path. So, like, what is the need for like specifying the path, or like what is the advantage or disadvantage of using that?
See, Chrome and IE, I mean, these are the third-party browsers. Initially, Selenium, when it was designed based on Firefox only. Later on, they introduced these third-party browsers, support of Safari, support of Chrome, support of IE. Then, like in order to make a communication with these browsers, we need to start this the server, like IE driver server or the Chrome driver server. So we are directly giving this path in our environment variables, so that whenever we create an object of the Internet Explorer class, it will directly able to communicate to the IE browser and directly to the Chrome driver browser. This is what written inside the constructor of these classes.
Oh, so like you mean to say without like without setting that property in the environment like variable, we can directly the hardcode it, and so in that case, like,
Yeah,
is it better to set the
either
environment so that
exactly.
every
It's
team member,
Mhm.
so every team member might have different path for that, so that like we can share the same code base and set the property in the environment variable.
Exactly. There is other way of doing it. Either you can copy these files, go to the location where you've stored this file. So let's say I talk about iDriver.exe. I'll just copy this file and paste it directly to my project. So I'll paste it over here. This is my iDriver server.exe, and then I just need to write system.set property webdriver.ie.driver, and in the value I'll just give ie driver server.exe. So in this way I am not giving any path because it's been picked up from the root directory itself.
So does it mean that exe is not pointing to the one that is installed in my machine, or that is there in the project folder?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Uh, so you are like when you are copying that exe and pasting like into the workspace, so which means that exe right now I have in my project folder itself.
Exactly. This is now pointing to this exe file.
Okay. Yeah, like that makes sense, because like every team member might have different path for that exe. Like,
Exactly.
different family.
Exactly. So if you have directly kept it inside your project, you need not to give any path over here.
Okay. Okay, fine.
All right.
Hi Raman, in the system set property you are giving the webdriver.ie.driver. So can I give any name, or is that the reserved one?
No, these are the reserved. These are the reserved keywords. So you can either give Chrome.driver or IE.driver.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. So let's come back to the Firefox driver class first. So driver.get, I was talking about, let's say, the get method, get title method, what all methods that we're going to call inside this class. Each and every time I need to go to this document and I need to check for the definition what this method is doing. What I can also do, I can import this API document into Eclipse as well. So in order to do that, what you need to do, you need to right click on your project, go to build path and go to configure build path. Then you need to go to libraries and from this library, do you see this jar file Selenium server standalone that we have imported? Just open this jar file and you see a Java doc location over here. Just click on this, click on edit, and this is where you need to give the Java location path, Java doc location path. So Java doc document is this. Now instead of this, you need not to copy index.html, and except this index.html, you need to copy the entire path. Just copy this path, go back to the Eclipse and paste this path over here like this. Click on OK. Click on OK, and the Java document will be imported inside Eclipse. Now if you mouse over onto get method, it will show you the entire definition. Now you need not to go to the Java documentation on Selenium again and again. If you mouse over onto the get title method, it will show you that it returns the title of the current page. Right? This is how we import the document inside Eclipse. Any Java document you need to import related to any API, you will be doing it this way. Right. So when I say driver dot get title, it returns me the title of the current page. Now WebDriver will gonna do up till only this. Now what I want to do, I want to print this title. Now that is not the work of a WebDriver, that it will also gonna print the title for you. So that work will be done with your core Java concepts. So anything we need to print, we put it inside system.out.println and we'll put this thing over here. So when I save this and run this, it will gonna print the current title of Gmail. So it launches Firefox, goes to Gmail, and you can see in the console the Gmail title is printed. Right. Now there is another way of printing it. Either you can put it directly inside system.out.println, or you can store whatever values that it returns into a variable. So you can say title equal to this. And then what would be the data type of this? We know that it is returning some character values or string values, so the data type will always be string. But if you still want to know what are the possible data types of this method, then what you need to do is just mouse over onto this method and you need to see the return type of this method. So this is returning a string value. So our data type should always be of a string value. You cannot store it inside int or any other data type, right? Now let's say this was my actual title that I got from the website, and my expected title, there is another title that is expected title. I'll name it as actual title and name this one as expected. Now this expected title, I might get it from the Excel sheet, might get it from some notepad or a Word file, or might be from a database. We have not talked about those things, how to connect with that. Right now I'll just gonna hard code that title. So I'll say yahoo.com, right? So this is my expected title. Now I want to check whether these two titles are accurate or not, whether the expected meets the actual or not. If both of them are the same, then the test case will pass, otherwise the test case will fail. Now there are many ways of doing it, right? If you are working only on core Java, the easiest way of doing is to use if and else. Now if and else, if I talk about the syntax of if and else, so this is how I'll be covering the core Java concepts that you asked, that will I be covering the core Java as well in the training? So I'll be covering them within the WebDriver examples. So one of the things we can do over here, if I use if and else, the syntax of if and else is that if the condition is true, it will execute the if block, else it will execute the else block. Right, this is a syntax of if and else. So if the condition is true, I want the test case to be pass. Else, I want the test case to be fail. Now, when the condition will be true or when the condition will be false, who will tell us? How will we come to know whether the condition is true or the condition is false? If the actual is equal to expected, then it will be pass, otherwise then it will return true, otherwise it will return false. So there must be some method in order to do that. If we are talking about string, we know that string is a data type in Java, but string is actually a class as well. If you see over here, the string class, right? So if string is a class, then there must be some methods which are there inside a string class as well. So let's say this is a class and this is a variable, a reference variable. If I say actual title dot, I'll get all the methods from a string class. See all these methods. And I'm actually looking for a method that returns true or false. And that can be used for comparing two variables, right? So method could be any method, which type of method returns true or false. Int will not gonna return true or false, right? Boolean is the one that can returns us true or false, right? So Boolean is a data type that returns true or false, and I need to take a look at the method. There is one method that is equals. So this is used to compare the strings, right? And this is a Boolean method. If I say actual title dot equals expected title, if both of these matches, then it will gonna return us true. Else it will gonna return us false. So this is what I need inside the if statement. So if actual title dot equals expected title, then the result should be pass, otherwise the result should be fail. So if I run this now, it should actually print fail in this case, because the actual title is Google that it will get from driver.getTitle, and the expected we have given is Yahoo. So it will gonna fail the test. So over here you will see that it has printed failure. But in real terms, when we start working on some project or like framework designing, we're not gonna use if and else for comparison. There are something called as assertions. So assertions are provided by some Java frameworks because this if and else will only gonna print the statement. If I instead of fail, if I write pass over here, then it will gonna print pass if the condition does not match. So if and else only gonna print whatever that you have mentioned inside these statements. It will not gonna report failures. In order to report failures, we will be using some Java frameworks, and there is something called as assertions. So we're going to talk about that later on. First, we're going to clear our basic concepts. Okay, I have some more questions over here. Yes, we can debug the code as well in Eclipse. I'm going to show you how you can debug that as well later on. It's very simple. Just add a breakpoint over here and then run it in this debug mode. So we're gonna do some troubleshooting later on. Then I'm gonna show you how you can debug it. But you can try it on your own, and then start pressing F6, and you will be able to do that. Okay.
I remember
Sir, one more question.
Okay, one by one. Yeah.
That Java doc you have mentioned Selenium Google.com, that URL you have given. Instead, I can do my local if I have Java doc in.
Exactly. You can do that as well.
Okay. And second question. system.get driver can I use because my system has configured for some Firefox by default or IE by default. So can I have a class, general class, generic class?
Mhm.
It will try to find system.get driver, and if it could not find null, then I can use in the else statement some other driver.
Exactly, exactly. You can do that as well. You can do that
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
That is OS specific. System.get driver means for Windows.
Uh, uh, no, I mean system dot set property. It should yeah, it's specific to Windows only.
Okay.
Let me see. I mean no, I mean this thing will gonna work on Mac as well. I have tried on Mac for Chrome browser, and I've given the same thing. This thing should work on Chrome as well. Yeah,
Because in
Mac
some
as well.
projects I've seen a general driver class
Mhm.
which will try to find the get driver,
Yeah,
and
that
if
is
it
what we'll be creating once we start designing the framework. We're gonna have different classes, and in a class we're gonna initialize all the browsers. In some class we're gonna initialize all the properties, and then we'll have a different class for test cases. So that is a later part that we're gonna start with. Right now we've just started with the basics.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean there are
Hi,
some
Raman.
few.
This is Lalit.
Uh, yeah, Lalit, tell me.
Yeah, one quick question, Raman. Uh, Last time I tried launching this Gmail through Firefox, okay, and it launched for me, but I don't remember I downloaded this Firefox driver server.exe. So how did it work?
There is no Firefox server exe. I mean, it's only with IE driver server and the Chrome driver.
Oh, so basically, if we want to test in IE and Chrome, then we need to download these things and put it in the path.
Exactly. Just add it
All
into
right.
the path. This is only one-time setup. You need not to do it again and again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. Guys, I would like to say one thing. I mean, these things are very basic. Maybe there are some people in the webinar session who have understanding of WebDriver a little bit. You might have worked on it. But I really want that, I really want your patience at this time, because we have to teach this thing to each and everyone. So we're going to follow all the things in sequence. Right. So if still you have any questions, you can add it over here, or you can mail me separately as well. All right. So, okay, I got one more question. Just give me a moment. Where's the question? Okay, how the output of report? Okay, for generating reports, we will be using some inbuilt report feature that is provided by some Java frameworks, or we will be using the XSLT report, the graphical report as well, that is provided by TestNG. So that is again a later part. First, we need to through with this WebDriver API. First, we need to understand how we can locate elements on a web. These all are the later integration part when we start creating frameworks. Right. Okay. So then if you need to close a browser, you will directly say driver.close. Or you can also say driver.quit. So what is the difference in close and quit? Close will only going to close the current browser. And quit we're going to close the current browser plus all related windows in a current session. In a current session means if there are other Firefox windows open previously and you are running this code and you say driver.quit, it will only going to close the windows that are opened in a current session by the WebDriver, via the WebDriver script. It will not going to close any previous opened windows. Right, close will only going to close the current window. So let's say if we are working on a website that deals with tabs and pop-ups, if you clicked on any tab, it opens up in a new if you click on any link, it opens up in a new tab or in a new window. And when you say driver.close, it will only gonna close one window on which your focus is currently on. But when you say driver.quit, it will gonna close all related windows that are opened up as a tab or as a pop-up or a small window, a new window. It will gonna close the entire session. So that is the difference in close and quit. So when I run this again, and it quit everything, right? So now let's say I was talking about, let's say I have completed the entire project using the Firefox driver class only. Now my client says that you need to execute the same code on IE as well. So the very first thing I can do is either I can change this class to Internet Explorer driver, or if I want to run it on Chrome, I can directly say Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver, and it will start working on Chrome. But these things I need not to give it over here. I want to decide these things on a runtime. Runtime as in I have an Excel file, and in this Excel file I have a column called browser, and I've given the value over here Chrome or IE. If I give IE over here, this code should run on IE. If I give Chrome over here, this code should run on Chrome. If I give Firefox over here, this code should run on Firefox. So this thing I need to decide it on the runtime. So what I have done, let's say I've created a variable public static string browser equal to Firefox. So let's say I'm reading this value from Excel sheet. Right now I'm hard coding over here because we have not studied how we can read from Excel. So that we're gonna study later on. Right. So I'm just hard coding value over here. If the value is Firefox over here, the below code should work on Firefox, should run on Firefox. If I give IE over here, the below code should execute on IE. So what I'll do, I'll add up a condition over here. I'll say if browser dot equals IE, then what it should do? It should create an object of Internet Explorer driver equal to new Internet Explorer driver. So do watch this thing very carefully, right? Now same condition I'm gonna give else if browser dot equals Firefox. So it should create an object of Firefox driver equal to new Firefox driver, and same condition I'm gonna give with Chrome. Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver, right? And I'm gonna remove this thing from here because the rest of the code will gonna remain same. Now if you see over here, I'm getting some errors with the driver because it's not able to find the driver instance. The scope of this driver is limited to this block only. Scope of this driver is limited to this block only. Right. What else I can do? Let's say I want to use Firefox driver class. I have initialized it outside of this main method. So I can write it like this: public static Firefox driver. If I'm writing it in this way, I need to remove it over here, like this way. So this driver is now accessed over here as well. Right. The scope of this driver is now to the entire class. We can access it within the entire class. Right. Now what I've done, when I give the value as Firefox over here, if I run this code, it will start working on the Firefox browser. See, the execution is going on the Firefox browser. Now what will I do if I want to change it to the Internet Explorer browser? So will I give the same thing over here? Let's say if I copy this thing as well, I'll give public static Internet Explorer driver, and I'll remove this over here. I cannot do this because here we are creating two variables. We cannot create same variables two times, right? I cannot say int x equal to 100 and then again int x equal to 100. These will be duplicate. So what to do over here? How will I solve this issue? Other thing I can do, either change it to driver 1. Driver 1 equal to new Internet Explorer driver. In this case, my entire code is used, written using the driver instance. So if I want to use IE, I need to use it as driver1.ie, driver1.get. Again, it means if I have written 10,000 lines of code for Firefox, I again need to write the 10,000 lines of code for IE using the driver1.get, driver1.get title, driver1.close. And same thing if I want to do it for Chrome, I will name it as driver2. So this thing does not look feasible. So what we need to do over here, how to come out of this situation? Okay, anyone? I know some of you might be knowing it. How to do that?
Can use the web driver, which is the interface.
Exactly.
You can assign a driver.
Exactly. So that is what we have seen in our first class, that we have created an interface called WebDriver. When I was explaining you the architecture of WebDriver, I've created an interface. So interface contains the same method get. It contains the same method get title. And if you talk about the classes, these classes have the same method. Chrome has the same method get. Chrome has the same method get title, but the definition is different. If you see the definition, it is getting the title in the Chrome page. If you see the same method in Firefox, it is actually getting the title in Firefox. So the definition is changed, and all these methods are declared as a method body over here in WebDriver interface. Now the benefit of doing this is that if you go back to your code, if you go back to this code, instead of writing these things over here, you can directly point WebDriver interface over here. Now what is the benefit of doing it? If I import this WebDriver, I can say WebDriver driver equal to new Internet Explorer driver. WebDriver driver equal to new Firefox driver, and same way WebDriver driver equal to new Chrome driver. Because when this reference is pointing to this class, it will call all the below methods related to the Internet Explorer class only. And if this is pointing to Firefox, then it will call all the methods that are related to the Firefox driver class only. And if you take a look at the API itself, within this interface, you'll see that they have clearly mentioned it is hoped that you write your test against this interface so that you may swipe in a more fully featured browser when there is a requirement for one. So whenever you need to swipe between any class or any browser, it is also called as runtime polymorphism, right? So whenever you need to switch in between the classes like this, which contains the same methods, so you need to implement an interface. Through this, you can switch in between the classes. Now, if you give IE over here, your code will be executed on IE. Each and everything will be done on IE. it will get the title, it will close the window, right? And if you give Firefox over here, then it will execute everything on Firefox. And same thing goes for Chrome. So this is why the interface is being introduced, the WebDriver interface. Otherwise, you can do everything with just one Firefox driver class if you want to work on Firefox. Or if you want to work on Chrome, you can directly use the Chrome class. So normally people, when they write code in WebDriver, they generally write it like this way. They write it WebDriver driver equal to new Firefox driver. Like we have written Firefox driver equal to new Firefox. So this is a way of creating an object of Firefox driver and assigning it to the reference of the WebDriver interface. We cannot create an object of an interface. So in an interface, we cannot create any object. An object can only be created of a class, right? All right. So this is how we use this WebDriver interface. Any questions so far? So we'll move to our next topic. So I'll create a new class and I'll give it a name as locating elements. All right. So I'll create an object of Firefox driver. I'll write WebDriver driver equal to new Firefox driver. And I'll import everything. There's a shortcut of importing. You can say Control plus Shift plus O. Once you say Control Shift O, everything will be imported automatically. Right? All right. I can see Radha, you have raised a hand. Do you have any question? Okay, so you need to remove the raise hand from here. All right, that's fine. All right, so now let's say I go back to the website, that is gmail.com. Just give me a moment. All right. So let's say this is the home page of my application that I want to automate. Now, if I want, like I want to do a manual testing of this application of this home page. So what all things I'll be doing? I'll be checking whether this image exists on a page, right? Whether this image is as per the specification, whether there is no spelling mistake over here, whether these things are as per the specifications, whether I'm able to enter some email, I'm able to enter password, I'm able to click on sign in, I'm able to click on the checkbox, right? I should be able to validate each and everything available on a page. As a manual test cases, I will be writing test cases in order to automate this web page. I'll be writing these things only, right? And these are the things that we need to automate at using WebDriver. Now, in order to automate any of these elements on this web page, first of all, we need to locate these elements, right? In order to even type over here, we need to locate this type box, this text box. In order to click on sign in, we need to locate this sign in, right? Now, Selenium is not a tool. It will not going to provide you any functionality that can locate element on a web page. Like in QTP, we have object spy. So that object spy, if you are aware of object spy, then you take the object spy to a particular element. It shows you the property of that element. This is not the case with Selenium. In Selenium, we have some, we generally use some plugins or add-ons in order to locate these elements. Add-ons like, there are add-ons called Firebug, and the second one is FirePath. These are the add-ons to Firefox. So where are you going to get it? You go to Google and type download FirePath. This is the link where you should be downloading it. So when you go to this website, you'll see add to Firefox. Just click on this and it will be added to Firefox as a plugin, right? Now, in order to configure FirePath, the prerequisite is that you need to have Firebug already configured, because Firebug is an add-on to Firefox and FirePath is an add-on to Firebug. So next thing you need to search for is FirePath. So this is your FirePath. Just click on this. Let it load. Okay, so this is your FirePath. The add-on requires the following add-ons to work properly, right? So just click on add to Firefox and it will be added to Firefox. And this process takes very little amount of time in configuring. So it's in very few seconds it will be configured. Now once these add-ons are added, you'll see an bug type of icon over here on your browser. Just click on this. It will show you, it will launch your Firebug. This is your Firebug. Now here you're gonna see an arrow symbol over here. If you click on this, this is your inspect element tool. Wherever you take the mouse on the page after clicking on this element, let's say if I take my mouse onto the email box, if I click on this, it will show you some property over here. Now, if you see over here, this is XPath. XPath is one of the locator that will help you in locating this element uniquely on a web page. XPath is generally generated with the HTML property of this element. There are many locators available. If you see over here, there is a locator called CSS, which is very frequently used in Selenium. XPath and CSS, they are very frequently used in Selenium and WebDriver. There are many other locators. Locators, like if I talk about locators are ID. ID is a locator, name is a locator, XPath is a locator, CSS is a locator, tag name is a locator, link text is a locator, partial link text is a locator, right? And is there anything that I'm missing? Name, XPath, CSS, tag name, link text, partial link text, and there is one that is class name. Class name is a locator, right? So we're going to talk about all these locators in detail. And which most, any questions?
Yeah, Raman, I saw Sizzler. Is it a custom locator or?
No, it says we're not going to use the Sizzler over here because this is not provided in the WebDriver API. Any support for Sizzler, right?
And you said Firebug and FirePath. Do we need to have both add-ons for Firefox, or Firebug is okay to find?
Firebug is okay to locate the elements, but if you want the XPath and CSS are generated automatically, then you need this FirePath. Otherwise, you need to create the locators on your own.
Okay.
Right, so we'll be talking about those techniques as well, because if you're working on Chrome or if you're working on IE, you're not going to see FirePath on Chrome or on IE. So in that case, you need to generate these things on your own. So we have a whole big chapter on these locators, how we can create it on our own. If our website does not support Firefox, if it works only on Chrome or only on IE, then how are we going to create all these locators? So we'll be discussing about these things, right? So right now we'll just see these are the most frequently used locators, out of which CSS and XPath, these are the most important locators. Most of the time in interviews as well, there are differences that been asked in XPath and CSS, right? Which one is a better to use and why, and which is the fastest one, right? So in some time these techniques will be very much clear to you. right? Now, in order to locate elements, Selenium needs these locators. Your WebDriver needs these locators, right? In order to locate elements uniquely on a web page. Now, what we're gonna do, if I go back over here, the very first thing we need to go to a website. I'll say driver.get, and it accepts a URL, so I'll say http gmail.com. Now, instead of writing driver.get, I can also navigate to a website by saying driver.navigate.to, and I can give the URL over here, gmail.com. Now, how is this thing written? You should be able to understand the get thing very easily, right? Because we are directly calling the get method. Now, how I have called this navigate, and what is this to? So this navigate is also a method. This to is also a method, and it will gonna do the same thing. If I run this code, it will gonna navigate to gmail.com. Then what is the difference in navigate.to and what is the difference in .get? See, it has also taken us to gmail.com. Now let's go back to the API first. If you see over here, you're gonna see a method called get, right? This is a void method. It will not gonna return anything like string or any int value, right? It will not gonna return you anything. This is a void method. It will be executed directly, right? Just give me a moment. Right. So if you go downwards, you'll find another method, that is navigate, right? Now navigate is returning you something, WebDriver.navigation. Now what is this WebDriver.navigation? When you call this method, it will return you, if I click on this, a navigation interface. This is another interface, navigation. And if you go downwards, you're gonna see some more methods over here, which is inside this navigation interface. It means that you can call these methods as well. And there is a method that we have called to, which is load a new web page in a current browser. So same thing that get was doing, we were directly doing it with driver.get. So same thing we have done with driver.navigate, and with the help of this navigate, we can define whether we want to go to a particular URL, or we want to click on back button, or we want to click on forward button, or we want to refresh the page. So this navigate maintains the history of your browser as well. So you can say driver.navigate.back.forward, right? .refresh. But with get, you can only go to a particular URL, right? So here you have seen two interfaces involved over here. One is your WebDriver and the other one is the navigation interface, right? So this is how the entire architecture of WebDriver is designed. And I'm not saying that you should be able to understand the entire architecture in one day. It will gonna take some time, right? Just be with me. The flow that I'm going to discuss, right now, just go through that step by step, and in some time you should be able to pick up this WebDriver API. And each and everything will gonna start from this WebDriver interface. So your focus will majorly be on this WebDriver interface. And I want that everyone should keep some practice of reading this API document on like whenever you are practicing Selenium, just make a habit of reading this API document, because WebDriver is not simple as compared to the previous version of Selenium, Selenium RC. In RC there was only one class, but here you're gonna see a list of classes over here, list of classes and list of interface. But in order to work on this, this is your major interface. This is, you can say, a super interface, which will help you in navigating to the entire API document. So you just need to focus on this WebDriver interface, right? So when I say driver.navigate.to, I've gone to a particular URL. Now what I need to do on this page, I want to find any element, right? I need to locate any element. Now before typing onto this element, earlier when we used to work on RC, in that time if I want to type on this element, there was a method called type. I can directly say selenium.type or like this way, driver.type, and it will directly type on that element. So for typing, I give the locator, and then if I want to type on this element, I'll inspect this element. This is the locator that I got. I'll copy this locator and give it over here, and then I give the value. This is how I used to work on Selenium RC. It was very simple. If you want to click on any element, you can directly say driver.click, and you want to click on this sign in button, you take the XPath of this sign in button, copy this XPath and give it in the argument like this, and it will directly gonna click on that element. But this is not how it will work in WebDriver. In WebDriver, before typing on any element, before clicking on any element, or before doing anything with any element, you first need to find the element. Find the element with any of its unique locator. Locators we have seen, these are the locators. So you need to find the element by the ID, by the name, by XPath, by CSS, by tag name. These are all locators available. You can find element with any of these locators. Now if you go back to the API, this WebDriver interface, you'll see there is a method called find element. So this is a method that we need to call in order to find element. So when I say driver dot find element, now in the argument you can see it is giving something called as by. Now what this by is, let's again go back to the API. So over here I can see by. Now what is this by? If I click on by is another class. This is a class by. Right? Now if it is a class, there must be some methods. If I go downwards, okay, there are methods. Class name, CSS, ID, link text, name. So the one that we were discussing about the locators, these are the actual methods. These are actually the methods in the by class. So what I need to give over here, I'll say by dot, let's say I give ID. I want to locate this element with the help of any ID. Now when I say by dot ID, it asks me for a string ID. So string we always give it in a double quotes. Now what is the ID of this element that we want to type on? If I again inspect it, so this is the HTML code, input ID, email, type, email, right? So if you take a look at this element, in the DOM, this is what the input element. This is an input element. This HTML tag is an input element. Now in this, like some people ask me, like if I want to work on Selenium, do I need to have a good knowledge on HTML? No, it's not true. You are not building any website. You just need to know some of the things that these are the tags. This input is a tag, right? If you see over here, this label is a tag. These are the tags. And within these tags, these are attributes. The class is an attribute. For is an attribute. Value is an attribute. Name is an attribute. So tags and then attributes. Within these attributes, we have the values. This is all you need to know in HTML in order to work on Selenium, right? So when you say by.id, when I'm given by.id, so ID of this element is email. So I'll just copy email from here and I'll give it inside the code like this. So what I've done, actually I have find the element using one of its property, one of its locator, that is email. Right. Now what I will do, if I want, I can store this element as well into some variable. So I'll store this element into, let's say, element equal to this. Now what will be the data type of this element? What this element is returning us? Is it returning a string value? Is it returning an integer value? What sort of value this element is returning? If I write string over here, can I store it inside a string? No, I cannot. See, it is throwing an error over here. Now there are two ways to check it. What would be the return type? If you go back to the API document and see this find element method, you can see find element is returning us a web element. Even if you mouse over in Eclipse on this method, it will say that change the type of element to web element from string. So if you click on this, this is basically a web element. Now if you see over here web element, if I click on web element is also an interface. So web element is also an interface. So it means if you go downwards, you'll find methods inside this interface as well, which you can use. So there are two ways of using it. The first way, you can say what you need to do, you need to type inside this element. So you can say element dot, there is no method called type in WebDriver. So for typing, we use send keys. So when I say element dot send keys, I can give my mail ID over here .com, and I'll save this, run this. It will directly go to that website and hit that element and type inside that element. So it launches the browser, go to Google and type the element. So this is how we're going to locate an element and we can type on an element or do anything with that element. Same way, if you want to type inside a password, so we'll be locating the password element as well. So if I go over here, you can see again I got some property ID, class, name, right? I can use anything. If I copy the entire XPath, so I'll say I'll again store it inside an element equal to driver dot find element by dot. So there is another locator that is XPath. XPath is generated with the HTML property only, like this. So I've stored this element like this way, and then I can say element dot send keys, and I'll type something over here. Now you must be wondering that why I have not given any data type over here. If I give web element data type over here, then it will be duplicate. See, if I mouse over onto this, it will say duplicate local variable. I cannot write it like this way, x equal to 200, and then if I want to change the value x equal to 300, I cannot do it in this way. It will show it as a duplicate variable. But I can do it in this way. If I remove the data type, and if I remove the data type, it should work, right? So in this way we are overwriting the previous value. Same way, if I want to click on sign in, so if I again take mouse over here, so again this element I can take XPath, I can take ID, I can even take class, I can even take a name. So name is sign in. I'll just copy this and I'll say element equal to driver dot find element by dot name, given the name as sign in, and then I'll say element dot click, right? After clicking on this sign in, I'll get a message over here and I want to print the text of this message. So I'll again, every element on a page has some locator, right? So locators are available for all the elements. So again, I can take XPath of this element and I can say element equal to driver dot find element by dot xpath. So first of all we need to find the element, then only I can say element dot what I need to get. I need to get the text out of that element, and the method is get text. And what get text is returning, see what this click is returning. This is a void method. It is not returning anything. The send keys, it's again a void method. It is not returning anything. But this get text, it is returning a string. So I can either store it in a string, or I can directly print it by saying, just putting it inside system.out.println. So if you run this now, to enter username, password, click on sign in, and if we take a look at the console, it has printed the text as well, right? So this is how we should be using, like we should be locating the element first, and then we should be working on that particular element. There is another way of writing this code, the one that we have written in this way. I'm going to show you the other way of writing this code as well, right? But before that, we can go for like a 10 minutes break, right? Let me get a glass of water as well, and then we'll join back in another 10 minutes, right? So it's a break for 10 minutes. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, then just note it down, and we can discuss it after the break, right? All right, team, let's start the session. So is everyone back? Shall we start the session?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. So do you have any questions from so far what we have discussed?
So when we will use XPath and when you use the other simple methods like ID or name something?
You can use anything. I mean, there is no prerequisite that you should only be using XPath or you should only be using ID. Some people say it, I mean, when they compare CSS and XPath, they say that CSS is the fastest one and XPaths are a bit slow. XPaths are a bit slow in case you're working on IE. or in case you're working on mobile applications, right? But on Firefox, you'll see that XPaths are as fast as we have CSS and ID as a locator. But in a sequence, if anything, I mean, if the same question is being asked in interviews, then you can tell them in a sequence that the fastest one is the ID. ID, then name, then CSS, and then XPath. So this is what I mean. People generally say that about these locators. So ID is the fastest one. So prefer using ID mostly, right? But if there are dynamic IDs available, then you need CSS or XPath to handle them. So we'll be talking about dynamic elements as well later on.
Okay.
All right. So now the other thing we were talking about this code that we have written. I can do it in a different way as well. If you have seen over here, I have written in this pattern driver.navigate.to. Right. If I have to write it, I can write it in a different way as well. I'll say driver.navigate. Right. And if I mouse over onto this, it is returning me a navigation interface. So I can say navigation windows equal to this, or browser equal to this, right? And I'll import this navigation interface. Then I can say browser.to, and I can write http://gmail.com, and it will gonna do the same thing. You can do it in this way as well. If I run this, it will gonna do the same thing. See, it has navigated to Gmail and it has done all the same thing that we were doing directly using driver.navigate.to. So why we were able to do this? Because when we say driver.navigate, the navigate is returning as navigation interface, so we can directly call all the navigation interface methods over here. See all the navigation methods after this. So we need not to do it in this way. Same thing we have done it over here. Same thing we have done it in the below code. Find element. What this find element is returning? It is directly returning us web element, right? So we can directly call the method dot send keys after this. So instead of writing it in this way, I'll comment it out. Instead of writing it in this way, I can also write it in like this. So normally we write it in this. We write it in this way. Driver dot find elements by dot id email dot send keys. This is the way generally we write. Same way driver dot xpath, driver dot find element by dot xpath password dot send keys. Then by dot name dot clicked. Then by dot this dot get text, and then I can directly print the text. So in just 4 lines as well, I can write this thing, and when I run this, it will gonna work the same way. It will navigate to Gmail and perform all the operations like this way, and we'll get the same output. So this way as well we can do it, right? But what is the relevance of this web element? Why we have stored it in this way? What is the relevance? When we can directly use it like this way, what is the purpose of storing it? So this thing is also very important. there were many things that were not possible in Selenium RC. The reason why Selenium RC was a big failure, because in RC people were completely dependent on the methods. Methods as in, if you want to click anything, there is a method. If you want to type on anything, there is a method. If you want to do anything on a web page, there are methods available. But sometimes there is some specific requirement, and let's say I want to get the text of all the links from a web page. This is one of my test case. Now, if there is no method available, then you will be restricted. You will not be able to handle that functionality. If I take you back to the Selenium RC API, the default Selenium class, and what we need to do, we need to get the text of all links on a web page. So this is the default Selenium class. If you go downwards, there are methods for each and every functionality. If you want to attach a file, a method called attach file. If you want to capture screenshot, a method called capture screenshot. Right. Now we need to get the links from the entire page. I need to print the text of all links. There is no method in RC in order to do that. There is a method called get all links. What it returns? It returns the IDs of those links. It will not give you text of those links. And there is no way, there is no way you can get the text. You can execute this test case in RC because you are completely dependent on the methods, and methods are always limited. Methods are designed by a developer only, right? So whatever developer, whatever functionality that he has designed, we are completely dependent on his functionality. And if there is no method, we cannot do anything. But WebDriver does not work on this approach. Now in WebDriver as well, there is no method to get the text of all links from a page. But there are logics that we can apply. We can apply and we can get the text of all links, which is not possible in RC. So WebDriver is completely dependent on the logics. There are very less methods in WebDriver you're going to see. In RC, you can see it's a huge list of methods. You're not going to find these methods in WebDriver. There are very limited methods. Even in WebDriver API, you can see these are the limited methods. Only 12-13 methods are there. And then even in the related interface, the inner interfaces, there are very limited methods. Most of the things are handled through the logics and through the concepts only. And that is the reason of implementing this web element interface. We can directly store the entire element into a web element, a variable, which is not possible in RC. In RC, we cannot store an element into a variable and then we can later on work on that element. But this is possible in our WebDriver. We have actually stored the entire element, the entire text box into a variable with the help of this web element interface. So what is the relevance of this? I'm gonna explain you in our next lecture, so that we're gonna discuss it right now. So after this, it should be very much clear to you why we will be using this web element and what is the relevance of storing an element and how we're gonna add logics to these elements, right? So let's say I go to a website that is wikipedia.org. So on this website, there's a drop-down list. Oops. Right. Now what I need to do, I need to select some value from this drop-down list. Let's say I need to select a value called ST. Right. So we'll see how we can handle the drop-down list in this example. Let's see a moment. So I'll create a new class, say test drop down. I'll say web driver equal to new Firefox driver dot get, and copy this path, paste it over here, import everything. Alright, and now what I need to do, I need to select this value, right? So what I'll do, I'll locate this element. I'll locate this drop down list. So I got an XPath of this element. I'll copy this and I'll say driver dot find element by dot XPath, and I'll store it over here, right? And then I can directly use a method that I use for typing, that is send keys. So send keys will also going to work for drop down list. I can directly say send keys, and within this send keys I'll give a value as EESTI, the exact value. Now let's save it and run this. Now let's see. And the page is still loading. Till the time the page is not loaded, it will not going to execute the next command. Yes, we can locate it through ID as well. That's not an issue. Okay, so over here you can see ST has been selected, right? But we are not going to use send keys. Although we can select values using send keys, but what happened if I want to select any value that is not in English, that is like a value like this, or this value, or like this value, that is Hindi. So if I want to select this value, how will I select it? Will I type it inside send keys? I cannot type this value, right? Even send keys are sometimes not accurate. Sometimes there are values like English US, English UK, something like this. And let's say in the send keys you have given the values as English US. There might be a chance that it can select a value English UK. So send keys are not very accurate with this drop down list. So we'll not be using send keys for the drop down list. What else we can use? There is another class. In case you want to work on a drop down list, there is another class that you should be using. So a class, you can see if you take a look at this drop down list, in the HTML code, it is a select tag. So this is a standard HTML. Wherever you see a drop down list, you will see that inside a select tag. Same way they have created another class that is select. Now in order to work on a drop down list, you need to create an object of this class. So we'll say select equal to new select. Guys, I'm really sorry if you are hearing some background noise because there is some marriage going around over here and they are running crackers. So I'm really sorry about that. Okay. So select equal to new select, and then I need to import the select class. And see, you can see I'm getting a couple of options over here. You need to import it using openqa.selenium because it's from the Selenium project, right? Now once you do this, you're still getting an error over here. This is because there is a constructor which accepts your web element. Now, which web element? Web element is the drop-down list. So this is your web element. You can either give it completely like this over here. Now this select class belongs to this drop-down list. And now if you say select dot, you should be able to see all the methods that are there inside a select class. So one of a method, let's say I need to select a value using the visible text. So select by visible text, and I can give the value as EESDI. So when I run this, it will do the same thing. It will select the value as ST. So let us run it. Still loading. Just give me a moment, the page is still loading. You can press the cross button and stop this page to load, and then it will execute the next command. So as soon as I stopped it, you can see, okay, just let us execute it again. Okay. Should not take much time. Yes, Rahul, you can write down the question if you have. Just give me a moment. The site is taking huge time to load. Okay, so it has selected ST over here. Right now, if I want to select the value that is not in this language, so if you again go back to this website, and if you open up this select tag in the Firebug, you'll see that all the values are there inside the option tag. Right, all these values. Now against the value that I want to select, this is my value that I want to select, right? And against this value, there is an attribute value associated to it. Now this is again a standard HTML. Any website that you see the drop-down list, you're gonna find all these values. So there's a value Hindi and a value uh, HI associated with this ND. So what I can do over here, instead of writing select by visible text, I can write select by value, and I can give this value over here, HI, like this. So whatever value that you're gonna give, corresponding to that value, it will gonna select that drop down option. So let us run this, and then we'll see. It will now select the value as Hindi. Let me stop it. See, it has selected the value as Hindi. So this is how you can select any value from this drop-down list. You can also select the values based on indexes. So we have so far used the method select by visible value, select by visible text. There is a method that is select by index. So the very first value will be at the 0th index, and then you can keep on incrementing the values, and you can select it based on indexes as well. Right. So this is how you can do it. Okay. I have a question. I have 3 browsers in my machine. I want to execute. Should we execute different instance for each browser? See, Rahul, in order to execute this scenario, you need Selenium Grid in order to do that. So Grid will actually going to launch 3 instances of browser. Either you can execute 3 Chrome browsers, or like you can have different browsers executed at the same time. So this thing is actually done with the help of Grid. So if you want to see this execution, you can go through my Grid lecture. I have clearly explained how you can configure nodes. You can have the nodes configured on the same machine as well. Right, but this cannot be done simply in this way. So it has to be do with the help of Grid only. No, see, HTML will gonna remain same in all the browsers. So there shouldn't be much change in your code. Right? Okay, so select by value, it has selected this, right? Now let's say what I want to do, I want to print all the values from this list. I want to print all the values. First of all, I want to find the total count of values in this drop-down list. So how will I do that? Now there is a method available. In WebDriver, there is a method available which can get the entire values from this drop-down list. And the method is select.getOptions. Select.getOptions. It will return all options belonging to this select tag. Options as in, if you go back to this Firebug, you'll see that all the values are inside the option tag. So it will get the entire option tags. Not only this text value, it will gonna get the entire HTML tags, the entire tags. Later on, you can decide whether you want the values from the value attribute, you want the values from the language attribute, or you want the text from these tags, these indexes. That you can decide. So there is a method available that is get options, but I'm not going to use any method over here. We'll not be using any method. We will be creating our own logic in order to handle this condition. Right? So how to do that? Now if you take a look over here, these are more than one elements. right? Earlier we were dealing with individual elements like individual text box, individual link, individual submit button, right? Individual drop down list. This is an individual drop down list. Now we want to extract entire values. So all these values are inside different attributes, different tags, right? And as I said, each tag is a web element. So these are all different elements that you see over here. Now what we need to do, we need to find all elements, all these elements that have some common property. Common property as in when I write driver dot find, I get two things over here. First I get find element. If I want to handle individual element, then I'll be using find element. If I want to locate more than one elements, then I should be using this find elements. Driver dot find elements. This method will help me in finding more than one element on a web page. Again, I'll say by dot. So what should I use over here? By dot ID or by dot XPath? What should I use? I should be using any common thing. Anything that is common in all these elements. Anything that is common. Do you see anything that is common that I should use over here? Anyone?
You can use XPath. XPath is
XPath is common for all these attributes. All these values. You cannot take XPath of these values. If you try to take the XPath, let's say if I try to click on this, the list will go away. You cannot take XPath of this element. And if you try to generate the XPath, that will not be unique. So XPath is not common. There should be something else. There should be something else. Yes, by tag name, right? See, tag is common. If you see, all these values are sharing, all these attributes are sharing a common tag, that is option tag. And do we have any locator? If I say by dot, we have a locator, that is tag name, right? So if I say by dot tag name option, I've given this option over here, by dot tag name option. So what it will do? It will find and locate all the elements with the tag option. So the same thing that we were doing it with one of the method get option, we are doing the same thing by writing our own logic. And if you take a look at this find element method, if I mouse over onto this method, then this method is returning me a list of a web element, because this is not a single element. I cannot store it in a web element like this. Web element, let's say options or web element values equal to this. This is not a single element. I cannot store it inside a single web element. It has to be something like an array where we can store more than one elements or more than one value, right? In case we are working on WebDriver, then we should be using like the dynamic arrays, or if you have ever studied collections, then there's something called as list, something called as set, right? Which you can go through from the Java lectures. I have covered the collection part as well. So just you need to do, guys, there's a background noise coming. Can you mute yourself? Alright, so just you need to do is mouse over onto this, and it will change the type of this element to list of a web element. The list is same like an array, but it's a dynamic list. It's a part of collection. And what you need to do, there are two ways of getting values from a list. Same that you used to get a value from an array, you can use the same logic over here as well. So I'll create a loop. I'll say for int I equal to 0. The value on an index, the very first value on in an array will gonna store at the 0th index. So my first value is at a 0 index. Then I'll run this loop less than the last value. Let's say my first value is at the 0th index and the last value is at the 100 index, right? So I'm gonna run this loop less than 100. For I equal to 0, I less than 100, right? And then I plus plus. Something like this. I'll be writing a loop something like this. But how will I come to know how many values are there inside this list? So there is a method that is provided by this list. If you say values dot size, it will gonna return you the list of the size. So if there are 100 values, it will gonna return 100. But the last value will be at the 99th index. So you need to run a loop less than 100. So this thing you're gonna give over here. So it should start the loop from 0 and should run a loop less than values dot size. And then we're gonna print these values. So if like we are creating an array, then we print this value something like this, values I, right? In case of array list, we'll write a syntax values dot get I, like this. So I'll just put it, I'll just print this thing. I'll say total values are plus values dot size. And again, if I take a look at this get I, this is again returning me a web element. So this is returning me a web element. It means I can use all the other methods of web element over here. So what I need to print from this index, I need to print the text. From each element, return me the text of that element. And when I execute this thing, when I print this thing and execute it, it will gonna print the text from all the indexes of that drop-down list. So if you see over here, all the values are being printed. The entire list. Total values are 53. You can see some question marks over here because Eclipse only understands the language that is in English. If you have any other editor available that supports other languages, then you will not see question marks against those languages. But it has actually printed the entire 53 values over here. By writing our own logic, we have actually extracted all these values without using any method. So we are not dependent on any method. So there will be assignment for you. What you need to do from this entire page, you need to print the text of all the links from the page. So that is an assignment for you. So some people must be knowing the answer, but I want like people who don't know should at least try this thing. Try printing the text from the entire page. Right? Again, there will be some logic that will be applied. There is no method to print all text. Like in case of values, we have a method called get options. There is no method in WebDriver which can print all values from a text from a page. So you need to write a logic in order to do that. Now, if you don't want to get the text, let's say I don't want to get the text, I want something else from this HTML tag. I want language. I want this attribute to be printed, or I want value attribute to be printed. So instead of get text, I'll say dot get attribute, and I'll give the attribute name as value. So it will gonna print all values from that drop down list. So let me run it. And if you see over here, all values are being printed. See, these are the values. It has not printed text this time. It has printed the values from that attribute. So same way, if the tags have IDs, you can print the IDs. If the tag have values, you can print the values. Any attribute that you want to print from the HTML, you can print it in this way using the get attribute method. Right? We haven't discussed about the web element, the relevance of web element so far, that we have discussed in the first lecture, why this web element is important. So we will be picking up this topic in our next session. We are already 15 minutes ahead, right? So we'll be picking up this topic in the next lecture, but I want that you guys should at least prior practicing whatever that's being taught so far, right? And if you want to refer the videos, then these lectures are in the very beginning of the WebDriver that I've started. Once you navigate to the course, you'll find them over here. Just give me a moment. So collections, you can refer it from here. Collection is one of the important things. So just refer the Java collection topic over here. This is Java collections, right? And then for WebDriver, you can start with the basic architecture that we have discussed in our previous session, and then introduction to WebDriver, handling drop-down and select class. Up till here, you can try practicing it, and don't take a look at the next lecture. Otherwise, you'll come to know how you can get the links printed as well. I want that you should try it first on your own, and then you should take a look at the next tutorial, right? So that is all for today, and tomorrow, next session will be another important session, because we'll be discussing about locators a lot in our next session. We're going to see how we can handle dynamic elements, how we can create our own XPath and CSS, right? So these are the things we're going to discuss, and we'll see handling other elements as well. So I'll be forwarding you the code and the recording of the session, of our today's session as well. So I'll upload it on, like the way I uploaded it on YouTube. I might upload it over there and give you the link, or I'll upload it on some shared repository and then give you a link for the same. Right? So do you guys have any questions so far?
Can you also share the course content?
Yeah, sure. I'll gonna forward you a PDF file which contains all the topics that we're gonna deal in the online session. Plus, you still gonna have lifetime access to all the videos. So this one as well as the APM one, you're gonna have access to both courses. So anytime you can watch these topics and you can practice accordingly. But one thing you need to make sure that do practice all of these things, because WebDriver is a bit complex initially, because it's completely a coding part. It's not a tool. And with coding, if you don't practice, then when you come to the next lecture, you'll have a hard time in understanding these concepts, because as soon as we move on, the topics will gonna be a bit complex. All right.
Okay.
So thanks a lot, guys.
Raman,
Yes.
Can we have these recording sessions? I mean, do you have access to this?
Exactly. You're gonna get the recording of all the sessions. Whatever that we're gonna discuss in an online session, you're gonna get recordings for all these sessions.
Okay.
All right.
And apart from this, I need to ask the other question which I have discussed. Can I call you after?
Sure. Sure. After this call, you can give me a call directly on my cell phone.
Okay. Thanks.
Right. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for your time and your patience. We're gonna meet in our next session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.